Let's think about tomorrow. Today is yesterday's tomorrow. For some of you that have heard me speak before, and for those who are meeting and hearing me for the very first time, I want you to remember I'm a proud graduate of Central State University and HBCU. I'm a proud member of Phi Beta Sigma Nu Chapter. I'm also a proud graduate who attended two high schools, one of them being Dayton Roosevelt, which closed before I was old enough to graduate. Dayton Roosevelt High School closed at the end of my freshman year. Why? Because they couldn't get white students to cross the bridge to attend. In addition to that, we also dominated in all the sports programs. When Dayton Roosevelt closed, more than half the athletes that wore the red and white letters of Dayton Roosevelt traded them in for the purple and white letters of Dayton Roth High School. Some of the biggest sports stars in Ohio in the 70s and 80s graduated from a Dayton public high school. I share this with you because I had a dream. Before my high school career began, the 60s were a story that still today people have trouble telling without embellishing or editing the truth or dismissing the dream or the reality of the dream altogether. My mother was part of the civil rights movement. She started Action Incorporated, an extension of the movement in Dayton, Ohio. My mother, Norma Jean, met with Dr. Martin Luther King and his disciples or his associates and held a secret meeting in our house at 559 Cedarhurst Avenue. None of us children got a chance to meet Dr. Martin Luther King. Why, I'm not sure. Maybe it was because the adults were protecting us children from the conversation they were having about how to conduct a peaceful protest once the boycott began. Now, while preparing for this speech, I did ask my yet 89-year-old mom just why she sent her children upstairs away from their secret meeting. And she said it was because it was for our own protection, because the meeting was about how to conduct a nonviolent protest, and her children were everything but. Today, I must thank the spirit of Dr. Martin Luther King and his close friend, Ralph Abernathy, who both were central figures in the Montgomery bus boycott that led to the day that Martin Luther King said these simple and most powerful words, "I have a dream." Today, there may be some of us, or many of us, who only know Dr. Martin Luther King because today is a national holiday and they get a day off free from other responsibilities or homework or anything else. However, the significance of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day is to you or his birthday, his name and his life's work will forever remain in the hearts and minds of the people that had to live and endure racism, endure legal injustice, endure economic separatism, endure hate, immoral brutality, and much worse, the loss of life just because of the color of their skin. We will never forget the 18-month-long boycott. And remember, it was not a struggle for just the people of color. It was a struggle of mankind for peace. Dr. Martin Luther King was born January 15th, 1929, and he was murdered April 4th, 1969, at the age of 39 years old. He was in his early 20s when he was called to lead the civil rights movement. In his Nobel Prize acceptance speech in 1964, Dr. Martin Luther King said, "I believe that unarmed truth and unconditional love will be the final word in reality. This is why right temporarily defeat is stronger than evil triumph." Today, the conversation in my mind has grown and flourished from the words, or his famous words, "I had a dream" speech, because only a few of us knew or remember while Dr. Martin Luther King spoke on the philosophical points of a nonviolent movement, his good friend Ralph Abernathy was educating the movement for what tomorrow meant for today. As famous as the words he spoke that day are, the conversation that we thought he was having with us and to the world was indeed a call to action. He was speaking to each arm of the civil rights movement, calling them to bring the people together for a national boycott, a peaceful protest. Dr. Martin Luther King inspired and empowered people to face the obstacles that were oppressing us head on, not alone, but to bring us as a unified community to be in strong numbers. I've been told many times when I heard someone speak of tomorrow, what they really are saying is they don't have the courage to do whatever it needs to get done today. Today. For many of us sitting around and you're listening to me, many of you have this word in your vocabulary that says tomorrow. And I want you to make note that tomorrow is the most dangerous word in the human vocabulary other than I can't. Although Dr. Martin Luther King, as a symbol of hope, I have a dream was a message for the masses. Dr. Martin Luther King was a man with a vision whose words still to this very day remind us that if we want to see a change, we have to be the change we want to see today. For those of you that are sitting in this room or listening to me that are still struggling or trying to connect the dots to the mundane life, tomorrow can only be a reminder as a little message of a conversation that you're having in your head that tells you when the time is right, you'll be ready, that you can't start something today that you want to do tomorrow. Tomorrow will never get anything done unless you're ready to get it done today. So I tell you, be mindful of your words. Tomorrow masks itself as an escape from your own reality. From where you are and where you're sitting right now, tomorrow allows you to press the pause button on the things that you fear the most. Believing that putting off today for tomorrow, you will have the courage to face whatever it is you're not willing to face today. It is a state of contentment with an uncomfortable state of just being until your tomorrow becomes an excuse for you not to do what is meant to do today. As Spike Lee said, do the right thing. So let me let you think about tomorrow. August 28, 1963. What do you think would have happened if Dr. Martin Luther King had woke up that morning and hit the snooze button on his alarm clock that day? This was the day he was supposed to deliver his most iconic speech, I Had a Dream. What do you think would have happened if Dr. Martin Luther King had missed his ride to the March on Washington? Would there have been a March on Washington, knowing what tomorrow meant or means? Do you believe in his speech that he was truly talking about a dream? What if he had never delivered that famous speech? Think about this for a second. Would I be standing here today or recording this message of a man's conversation that some, or think many, wish that this conversation never, ever had? Abraham Lincoln said, you cannot escape the responsibilities of tomorrow by avoiding them today. Long before Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the civil rights movement had its roots in a century-long efforts of enslaved Africans and their descendants to resist racial oppression and abolish the institution of slavery. Although the signing of the 14th and 15th Amendment granted basic civil rights for a people of color, there is still a struggle for civil rights, racial injustice, and racial oppression still happening today. George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, George Zimmerman, Trayvon Martin. Say their names. Never forget. And I'll repeat, George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, George Zimmerman, Trayvon Martin, and thousands of more. Say their names. I can say this with a great deal of confidence. Not many in this room or anyone listening to the sound of my voice will ever experience racial profiling. Not many in this room or in the sound of my voice will ever experience redlining, which limits them to a life that they dream of, even when they have the financial ability to buy and live in a neighborhood in any of the 49 states they claim to be free. I know you heard me say 49 states. I want you to listen to something. A good friend of mine grew up poor just like me, had a vision. He was telling me his father used to drive through one of those neighborhoods, what we used to call one of those good neighborhoods with the nice homes. And he says every Tuesday he would watch white folks taking out the trash. And he would sit there in his dad's car in the passenger seat. And he says, one day I had a dream that one day I would be taking out my own trash, just like them, in one of these nice neighborhoods. See, when you're poor, all you have is your dreams. Not because of those like Dr. Martin Luther King, who paved the way for people like George to have a better life, but it's for people to have a dream. Dreams are hope, helping other people every day. Today, my good friend George Holyfield, he understands why he loves taking out his trash so much now. It's because he and his family are free to live in one of those neighborhoods that he had always dreamt about. His view, his dream was not for tomorrow, but it was for his today, because his today is yesterday's tomorrow. And thank God that George lives in one of the 49 free states that allows him to take out his own trash. And for those who are shaking your head and remembering that there's 50 stars on there representing all 50 states, you heard me right. I said 49 states. And the reason why I say this 49 states is because as of August 22nd, 2022, there were still 5 states that had some form of legalized slavery on their books: Alabama, Louisiana, Tennessee, Vermont. Wait a minute. I know. I'm sitting in front of me. There's a state representative. Can you help me out a little bit? Yeah, I know I said 5 states, but let me tell you about this. They took a vote. Alabama, Oregon, Tennessee, and Vermont. Oregon was the one I forgot, Senator. All voted to abolish slavery. Still today, as of January 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th, and 19th of 2024, in the state of Louisiana, slavery is still on the books. With a vote of 4-2, 4 in favor of keeping slavery on the books, the bill was buried so deep into paperwork that only a few knew it was there. The language that remains on the books will allow a loophole called the Black Code, which allows authority to incarcerate Black people for petty crimes and force them to work for free. And some of us will call this slave wages. And I say today, I had a dream. Dr. King said, I believe that unarmed truth and unconditional love will have the final word. This is why right, temporarily defeated, is stronger than evil triumph. We cannot defeat hate with an eye for an eye point of view for your struggles. However, if you can touch a person's heart in a way that reaches the space that occupies his mind, there will no longer be a space in his mind. If his heart shows love and compassion, this is where change begins, in the heart. This is where courage begins, in the heart. Change your point of view and see what you see. Change your point of view and see what you feel. Now, my struggle when I was putting this speech together was trying to find comfort and believing that we've actually made progress, that his dream was still alive. This is my personal interpretation and perspective of the civil rights movement of yesterday, which allows me to speak and generate a conversation that not many fully understand, the sacrifice and the struggle of those that came before me. I am privileged to be able to speak and to share my story and my feelings with you today. Today is not a celebration of Dr. Martin Luther King and the civil rights movement. Today is a day to remember and reflect on the fight for the civil rights, and not forget the fight for freedom is not a thing of the past, but is an ongoing battle that we must continue to fight. Dr. Martin Luther King happened to be the featured guest of what the story that we're now telling is now worth telling and sharing again. Dr. Martin Luther King's dream was not about dismantling a system of oppression, but creating a society whereas everyone has equal rights, equal opportunity, and access to resources for a better life. It was not about a challenge that's for status quo of demanding for change. Today, we still see the effects of a systematic racist system, inequality in our society. We still see the racial wealth gap. We still see the lack of educational achievement gap. We still see the disparity in healthcare in a free country that we call home, that we call the home of the brave. We still see in a disproportion of people in the criminal justice system. We'll still see it in the continued discrimination of violence against marginalized community. Dr. King said, we shall overcome because the arc of moral universe is longer and it only bends towards justice. I will tell you, when I was asked to speak today, I was honored to speak at MLK Day. But while preparing for today, I was struggling with myself, wondering if Dr. Martin Luther King's dream was still alive. Today, I stand here and I say, I believe. I want to believe because of the courage that exemplified by everyone throughout the years who fought and sacrificed so much for me to speak my truth. For you to be here free, and for those who gave so much of themselves that had the courage to stand and march for what was right, and not just for the color of the skin, for the people of color, but for all of humanity, for the human race together. You know, when I came in this room, I looked at the flyer and it said MLK Day, MLK Day. It said courage and be the difference. I hold my hand over my heart and says courage comes from the heart. It's about making good choices in the face of fear, obstacles, having the mental and moral strength to venture beyond the education you thought you were taught and seek out the truth within the heart, withstanding the danger of fear or difficult times. The real queen of the civil rights movement, Coretta Scott King, said in an interview with TV mogul Byron Scott, she said the most dangerous weapon that we have is the truth. For those of you that are responsible for the young people that are learning, I say to you, tell them the truth. Let them decide once they know and leave it up to them what kind of person they want to be. And if you don't understand, then listen to them and learn the truth. The only way we're going to move on is we have these uncomfortable conversations become comfortable. The only way we're going to move on is not to defend the position of our forefathers, but listen to the position of the person talking in front of you right now. That's the only way we're going to get better. We can't hold people hostage for what people did 160 years ago, but we can hold them responsible for the stories that we're telling in the next 160 years. Dr. Martin Luther King held a vision for peace. He led by example, and he taught us all that we must be the change we want to see in this world. Dr. Martin Luther King said, darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. Understand the truth about our history and our contributions to this land that we call home. We must be the power of the people to create a change for today. We see it in our protests and the movement that has risen in response to police brutality and racial injustice today. We see it in the violence of activisms and organizations who are demanding justice for accountability. We see it in the young people who are leading the charge for a better future. Dr. Martin Luther King's dream was not about a dream, but a call to action. Today, his words remind us that the power that we shape and our destiny is created for more than just equality in our society. His story reminds us that changes does not happen overnight, but through collective efforts of individuals who are willing to stand up and speak out. So today we honor a legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King. Let us not only remember his words, let us also heed his call to action. Let us continue a peaceful protest for justice and equality. Let us continue to be the challenge the system of oppression that exists still today in our society. Let us continue to work towards a future where everyone has the opportunity to thrive. Dr. Martin Luther King did not live long enough to see his dream fully realized, but it is up to us to keep pushing forward. It is up to us to continue the work that he started. It is up to us to create a world where everyone is treated with dignity and respect, regardless of their race, gender, or background. So let us just not celebrate Dr. Martin Luther King's birthday or the legacy he has left for us today. Let us also commit ourselves to an ongoing mission for justice and equality. Let us be the change that we wish the world to see. Let us never forget the power of the words and the actions that shaped our future. So I stand here exercising a freedom that my great grandparents never had, to honor Dr. Martin Luther King with an example of being different, being the champion of change for not just men, but women and all races to be accepted. I ask you, when the time comes for you to exercise your right to change, to vote for the change that you want to see, do you have the courage to be different? Dr. Martin Luther King asked my mother, my father, my brothers, my sisters, your mother, your father, your brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, your friends, your brothers and sisters around the world, to make a career of humanity and commit yourself to a noble struggle for equal rights. You will make a better person of yourself. You will make a better person for a greater nation and your country. You'll become better within your heart and soul for the world to see. I believe his dream is alive in me. I hope his dream would not be just another day off from work or free from homework or other responsibilities, but a dream yet finished and never to be undone, a dream that rests on the heads of humanity over profit, a dream of personal choice and freedom. Because yesterday is tomorrow. I believe because the world is not ready for you, and I have to go out and get the world ready for you. Each and every last person is listening to the sound of my voice. You have greatness within you. You have the power to be the change that you want to see. You have the gift of the spoken word. You have the gift of freedom, independence, and the privilege that some don't have, and the privilege that people do have, to be the change you want the world to see. I thank you for the honor and the privilege in order to share this conversation. And I hope you do share this conversation, because I'm a living example of Dr. Martin Luther King's dream. Freedom. Have the courage to be the change you want to be.